Hi guys, this is Chantal and today I want to talk to you about the top 5 plants of 2022. These are not plants from any specific company per se. I'm not associated with any specific company. I'm just sharing with you my top 5 plants that I have planted this year in the year of 2022. I have divided them into two sections, one for flowering plants and one for vegetables. The flowering plants are not divided into categories like perennials, annuals, or anything like that. I just put both perennials and annuals together for the flowering plants. If you guys like these kind of videos, I might do a separate video on the top 5 plants, perennial plants, and top 5 annual plants, and maybe top 5 shrubs. We'll see. It depends how you guys like this kind of video. So we are going to start with the top 5 flowering plants. So I didn't put them in any specific order. It's not like from the top to the least. I just kind of put my favorite 5 plants, flowering plants of the year, the ones that have performed really well for me. We live in Zone 5 in New Hampshire, and these are the ones that did really well for me, and also they had super bloom power and beautiful colors, and they just did amazing this year. So let's go ahead and start with the first one. The first one that we are going to talk about is Sage Advice Russian Sage, and this is a variety by Proven Winners. And again, I'm not associated with any company, like I said, but I chose this plant because it is so resilient. I planted this in the heat of the summer. I have a video on this and I'll put a clip of it in here. And it did so well. I got maybe like 4-inch containers, and I planted those and I babied them. I was watering them every other day. They were planted in super sandy soil. I mean, like sand. Our hills over here and on our property are just sand. There's a small layer of dirt and everything else is sand. Actually, the whole property is like that. And but over there, especially where I planted them, it is only sand. And I watered them every other day. I gave them fertilizer when I first planted them. And it took them a little bit to get going and to put on some growth. But once they did, they immediately went to bloom. They didn't wait for the next season. They just they just got to work and put their blooms on, and their blooms are just amazing. And these flowers are planted on the entrance of our driveway, and they just provided this beautiful color. Both, I love the leaves, the leaf color of the sage, and they're kind of like a sagey green, like a blue-green color, and the flowers are this like iridescent purple. It is so beautiful, and they have like an upright standing habit. And I didn't give you any specs on the plant, so let's go ahead and give you some specs on that. They grow about 3 feet tall and 2.5 feet wide. So if you can plant them as a border plant. You could also plant them in the back a little bit to kind of provide some height to your bed, or if you they can be used in both formal and non-formal gardens. And the growing zones for this type of sage is from zone 4 to zone 9, and it blooms from midsummer to early fall. So they started blooming over here from late summer until we had until several hard frosts after. They were still blooming. So they tolerated the frost with their blooms, and they kept blooming until they couldn't handle it anymore. But they were just absolutely beautiful, and their blooms lasted for so many weeks. It wasn't just like a couple weeks. They lasted for like almost a month, or maybe a month and a half. I don't remember exactly, but their blooms start small, and you can see some color. So they provide some color as they are growing their blooms, and then they just keep growing and growing in their blooms, and as the blooms grow, they get more vibrant, and it's just absolutely beautiful. So the next one on the top 5 flowering plants is the Summerrific Berry Awesome Hardy Hibiscus. This was also a 4-inch pot plant. I got 2 of them and I planted them in the apiary garden, and when I got them they were super small plants, barely had any growth on them, but they had good roots, and I wasn't expecting any flowering this year or any much growth from them, and they immediately just put on about, I would say maybe like 2.5 feet growth. It wasn't a lot of stalks coming out of them, but they, as soon as they put out those stalks, and about midsummer they started blooming, and they just didn't stop even until after several hard frosts as well, like the Russian sage. And this type of hibiscus is hardy to our zone. We live in zone 5, and they are hardy from zone 4 to zone 9. So you can plant them in any of these. If you live in any of these zones, you can plant them. And their blooms, on the website, it shows that their blooms are darker. They're actually a little bit lighter in color than what the Proven Winners website shows. This is also a Proven Winners variety. These are my only 2 Proven Winners variety on this list over here. And again, I'm not associated with anyone over here, but I do love their plants. I think they have beautiful plants, and I love, there are many beautiful plants from several companies. I do use the plants from several companies. I don't just buy from a specific company. So this Summerrific Very Awesome Hardy Hibiscus grows 4 feet tall and 5 feet wide, and it blooms midsummer to late summer. The blooms on this plant, from my experience, the first day they're beautiful and wide and open. The second day they kind of start to wither, and then on the third day they're just dead. And after the blooms fall off, I noticed they have these really beautiful, I forgot what that's called. It's where the bloom sits on the, what's it called? The thing that holds the bloom on the plant. So it looks like a beautiful small flower, and they're green in shape, and they just along with a beautiful pink, vibrant pink color that they have with the green, this like this chartreuse green kind of color, is beautiful. It looks like it's starting to snow. It's really cold. I'm outside. I have one glove on because I couldn't find my other glove. I lost it somewhere, and but we'll just go with it. The third plant on this list is the Atomic Purple GOMPHRENA, and I bought seeds for this plant from Baker's Creek, and I wasn't expecting much, honestly. I thought it wasn't going to grow like bushy or anything like that, and I thought I would have to keep deadheading it, but I was so wrong. This flower, it just continued to bloom. I only maybe like took a couple blooms off of it, or 5 blooms maximum throughout the season, really just because my toddler wanted to play with the blooms, because they're beautiful blooms. They make beautiful decorations. You can dry them up. Here I am, I'm switching to a different topic, but I just want to say this: you can dry up their blooms, and you can make all sorts of different decorations out of them, and they just would provide a beautiful color. I think they dry out really well too. I haven't tried, but I have seen other people dry them out, and they look really good. So I might try next year, because I'm definitely going to plant them again. And so yeah, I didn't really need to deadhead them at all. They just kept blooming and blooming, putting on new blooms all the time without any need for deadheading, and they were full of color and bushy, and they grew about 2 feet tall, I think. So I did plant them sort of close to the border in the bed, but I think they make a great border plant as well if you just want kind of a tall plant on the border. And I think I might repeat that again next year, because they're just, again, they're beautiful, and they are an annual plant, so you do have to plant them every year. I planted them from seed, and they didn't give me a hard time at all. They don't need a lot of watering. They're not a super fussy plant, so this is a plus for me, because I do have a lot to take care of over here, and I do it all pretty much by myself. I do have some help from the kids and from my husband when they are available, but most of the time I do everything by myself. So I want plants that would perform and are easy to take care of, because I don't have a lot of time to do that. And these plants over here, all of them are super easy to take care of and they perform really well, and I would plant them again. So the Atomic Purple GOMPHRENA is not frost hardy, so that's the only downside of this plant. I think if it just continued to bloom throughout the frost, I would have loved that, but unfortunately it's not frost hardy, and it is only a summer plant or after frost. It does love the heat, so when it gets hot it puts on a lot more growth and a lot more flowers. So that's just something to note about it. Did I say third? Oh yeah. Okay, so now we're on the fourth plant. The fourth plant is the Purple Prince Zinnia. So this is also a plant from seed, and I also did buy the seeds for this plant from Baker Creek. Not, I keep calling them Baker Creek. And the color on this zinnia is absolutely beautiful. Just amazing. I had it planted in here in the vegetable garden, and I also had some planted in my kids' flower bed. My daughter actually planted the seeds, and then my son planted the plants for her, or they did it both together. I have a video of them planting it, and I deadheaded them a little bit, not really that much. I just tried to keep every now and then just kind of deadhead them, and they just kept blooming and blooming. They were amazing, and the blooms are gigantic, and they are tall zinnias also, so they grow about maybe like 3 to 4 feet. I think they're like about 4 feet tall, 4 to 5 feet tall zinnias. I still didn't take them down yet. I need to. And they kept blooming even after they lasted after a few light frosts. And once we got a hard frost, they were taken out by the hard frost, but they were just continuous bloomers, and if you do deadhead them, they would even bloom more for you, and I would think probably bigger blooms as well. And but I do also love the seed heads on them, because as they are dying off, they still kind of have these petals around the seed heads that are still in color, and the seed head itself has these the yellow stamens on it, and it also looks very beautiful, and it creates this kind of a cone shape as it matures, so it's really beautiful. And I did take some of the blooms and I'm trying to save some seeds out of them. I haven't dug many seeds out of them yet, but I will once I have the time, probably after Christmas, because right now the season is a little bit crazy. So the ones in the vegetable garden I direct sowed, and the ones in my kids' garden we planted them in a pot first and then planted them outside, and they both did really well. I didn't see really much of a difference between either of them. They both performed really well. They both grew about almost 5 feet tall, and they put on a lot of blooms. So you can start them either way, from direct seeding or direct sowing, or in seed trays, whichever you prefer. The ones that I direct seeded also kind of came up really quickly as soon as the weather warmed up. I planted the seeds right after our last frost, and they immediately just popped up and did really well. So these are also annuals. They provide beautiful color in the garden, and you can also use them to repel insects in your vegetable garden, and they are great as cut flowers, along with the GOMPHRENA as well. The last and the fifth flowering plant of the top 5 is the Sweet Alyssum. And again, I'm not listing these in any specific order. I'm just sharing with you my top 5 flowering plants. So Sweet Alyssum. I love this plant. It smells sweet. It is beautiful. It provides this kind of ethereal look in the garden. It's kind of a see-through almost, and it continues to bloom. You don't need to deadhead it. You can shear it off if you want to, just to kind of tame it a little bit, but I kind of like the wild look that it has. It's not really wild, it's kind of like a mound. It creates a mound look, and it just the bottom blooms die off, and then on the top of the stem new blooms form as it continues to grow, and they are just beautiful, and they are great for pollinators along with the zinnias as well. I'm not sure about the GOMPHRENA. I didn't really look because I wasn't there as much as I was here in the vegetable garden, but they came up. I planted them super early spring, before any of our before our last frost date, way before our last frost date, probably a month before that. And I planted them along with some cabbage and cauliflower, and I covered them under frost covers, and they didn't grow so much during that period of time when they were covered, just because they didn't receive as much sunlight, because they do love the sunlight. And after I took the covers off, they just grew, and they were blooming so much, and they kept blooming from early spring all the way to, sorry, the wind is really strong today, but that's the only day I have to film this video, and I don't want to film it inside because it's noisy. And so they kept blooming all the way from early spring until about mid to late November, and we had many hard frosts, and they just kept blooming, and they died maybe like a week ago or so. I am just amazed by this plant, and these I planted from seeds as well. I'm not sure where I bought the seeds from. I don't remember, to be honest with you. I have had these seeds for several years now, and I did take some of the blooms I showed in my last video, choosing the blooms, and I talked a little bit about that, what kind of blooms I choose, and I'm going to be saving seeds from those for the next year. Alright, so those were our top 5 flowering plants. So now we are going to go to our top 5 vegetables. If this video is too long, I probably will divide it into 2 separate videos. We'll see how that's gonna go. If not, we're just gonna keep going with it. So these were my top 5 flowering plants. If you guys have any questions about any of them, please leave them in the comment section down below. And if you have anything to add about any of them, or any also please leave them in the comment section down below. Also, please tell me, what are your top 5 flowering plants of the year 2022? Because I want to plant more things. I can't have enough planting new varieties of plants. I always want to try new things, and there are so many varieties that I haven't tried yet and I don't even know about. So please tell me, what are they, so that I can try them. If you like this video, please hit the like button so that more people can see this video. And if you are new here and you like these types of video, hit the subscribe button so that and the bell so that you can receive notifications of whenever I upload new videos. And I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you again next time. Bye.